This is the Community Redevelopment Agency for Monday, September 22nd.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone have any comments on the minutes? Doesn't look like it. Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Seconded.
Anybody comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Very good. Does anybody have any conflicts of interest they need to disclose? Don't see anybody. We have a public comment section. If anyone would like to speak, any members of the public would like to speak, please stand and state your name for the record. Anybody interested? All right. No public. We're on to our presentations then. CRA Capital Projects Review.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and CRA Board. Susan Cora's Office of Community Development. We will talk about our capital projects. As always, I'm going to talk about probably most of them today, but if there is anything that you have questions on, please feel free to ask if I don't touch on it. We'll start in Golden Gate. El Camino's going along really well. It's been interesting. It's the kind of project that people think nothing's happening because it's 10 blocks long. So if the contractor's at one end, everybody on the other end thinks, why isn't anyone working today? So we've had a lot of those kind of funny comments, but it's moving right along. The Landscape Vision Pilot Project, I just want to point out that that is having what we're calling a community touch point event to get some input from the community and talk about what we're looking to do there. Take a look at the conceptual design, et cetera. That's October 29th, 4:30 to 6:30. There is going to be food. There is going to be giveaways. There's going to be lots of fun. So I'm hoping that you can all put that on your calendars and come on out and support. Joy's been working really hard with our consultant on that project. Golden Gate Neighborhood Improvements. We do have Wendang here to my left. She's a principal with DDEC, and she, if you recall, recently presented initial design ideas for the project to this body. And today she's going to do a little update for everybody on the specific designs for street sections, typical sections we call them, so that you have an idea for what we're looking to do and an appreciation for that and get some input from you. Next, we'll move to Hobe Sound, Dixie Highway Stormwater and Streetscape Project. We did get through the RFQ. We did have 4 responses. And then the selection committee chose 3 to come and actually present their projects to the committee again. And the contract negotiations will happen later. I think it's later this month. Oh, October, early October. So we're still in the cone of silence. So we'll let you know what goes on.
Question. 3. So you had getting proposals from 3, the
So we
remaining
had
3?
actually 4 submissions.
Okay.
And then the selection committee went ahead and looked at all 4 of those, scored them, and we put 3 of them through to actually make proposals, presentations to the committee. So that went very well, and now it's contract negotiation. So we'll let you know what transpires from there, but that project's moving along nicely. Then we'll move into our CMAR phase after that. Unpaved roads in Hobe Sound. Jana's going to talk about that, as well as a Jensen Beach project when she comes up to talk to you guys, so I'm not going to say anything about that. Right into Old Palm City. CapTech Engineering is our consultant on that project. They're planning more community engagement October and November. There has been quite a bit up to this point, and I'm not sure. I think it comes to you guys November, maybe? I'm not sure. But they will present to you as well at some point. And remember that this is concept and engineering as well. So this is the two rolled into one. So we're really moving along on that. Lots of design work happening. Port Salerno Park Drive is in construction right now. New Monrovia Park improvements, bids should go out, I'm hoping by the end of this week, early next week. And then we'll get the costs on that and we'll be able to move forward. And then I'm going to move to Rio. So Rio's two big projects right now, the 707 streetscape enhancement and the property and civic center design. If you recall, those two projects, design for those projects are running concurrently, and we have the same consultant working on both of those, which makes sense because a lot of it happens in the same area. So there's really no reason to pay two companies to kind of give you back, information in the same place. And they're doing a great job. And I point that out because there's a really intense schedule for their community engagement for both of those projects. And it's reflected in the capital projects report. So if any of you would like to join us for any of those, the first time, or the second time actually, second time, right, Jordan? That they're going back to the NAC will be this Thursday. And just to make a note, if you are interested in, for the public, if anyone is listening, it's changed. It will not be at the Log Cabin. It will be at the Vince Bacchino Center, which is the community center right near Langford in Rio. So that should be real interesting to look at. They did a survey of what people are looking for, and just because it's actually interesting information, the number one thing was shade trees, and that goes for both projects. They did a survey for each, so very interesting. Those are the things I know that are close to Bert's heart, and as CRA folks, for the rest of us as well. So I thought it was interesting that that's exactly what came back to us, was shade trees, and what was next? Landscape? Public art. Like, what do people want to see, in their CRA, on their streets, at their public buildings, those kinds of things. So very interesting survey work that they did. And that's it for capital projects. Does anybody have any questions?
You answer it, because I don't see anybody working, so I was going to ask about that.
See, that's the thing, is that's exactly what's happening. And it was funny because Joy gave me a little tour of the construction site one day, and we were like, she's like, you'll see them, wait for it. And sure enough, yes, there they were.
All right, great, thank you. Next item, CRA project review, Hope Sound unpaved roads, Jensen Beach, Maple Ave drainage.
I don't know which one you are, Jana.
It's on
Oh, here we are. This one?
No, go to the main screen.
Is that you? Should I just take my hand away from the mouse? Leave the mouse alone.
Good afternoon, Jana Cox, Program Manager. I am going to cover a couple of projects, one in Jensen and one in Hope Sound. The Jensen Beach project is Maple Avenue drainage, and the one in Hope Sound is unpaved roads. So on Maple Ave drainage, there are stores called the Jensen Beach Shops, and there's about 9 businesses back in there, and they've always had a problem with drainage. They've tried different avenues to fix the drainage, and you can see there's always water back behind the tattoo shop next to the old barber shop. They tried some things on their own because it is private property, so we couldn't go in there and fix it for them. So we sent out for a study, and we had DDEC bring back some fixes for the drainage. And they gave us 2 options, and we are going with option 1 on this map. So we can do work in our right-of-way and allow them to hook up to the things that we do there. So what we're going to do is, and actually when I say we, I mean Public Works, install a storm manhole on the west side of Maple Ave, install a storm inlet on the east side of Maple Ave. So once those two things are installed, it's the Jensen Station Shops, I probably said it wrong, Jensen Station Shops. They're responsible for hiring an engineer and figuring out how to hook up to those two items. Because it is on our property, the right of way, and then their property is private. We're hoping that will fix the issues because it's always wet back in there. The second project I am talking about is Hope Sound unpaved roads, and all 6 CRAs, I believe, started contributing to our 2022 budget for unpaved roads in collaboration with Public Works. Then when our District 3 Commissioner came around, he wanted to prioritize the unpaved roadways in Hope Sound. So we have 11 roadways that were reviewed. The very first one that we are going to do is Eleanor and Hammond, and it's sort of the pilot program to see how we can work with Public Works and our contractors to get these done quickly. So on the next slide, I'll show you kind of the steps we went through. In February of '25, we identified the road. In April of '25, they did survey and field work, and this was all in-house. In July of '25, we had someone from Public Works, our engineer, design it. In August, we sent it out for a quote for construction on one of our continuing contracts. In November of '25, they have a notice to proceed. So I just wanted to show you how quickly, when we work together, that we can get something done. And that's all I have. We do have the second set of roads already in design, unpaved roads.
Eleanor and Hammond, they're off Bridge Road,
Yes, so it's directly
across from Banner Lake Club?
west of Publix, across from Banner Lake Club.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So I think there's 3 or 4 houses back in there.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the road, I just wasn't totally.
So I know all of the CRAs are looking into their unpaved roads. Will all of those areas work with Public Works? Like, will they all be like a joint venture, or?
That will depend, Jamie, I think. We did the same in Golden Gate because Public Works was already doing construction there. So we look for those opportunities first. If, for example, the county's doing some other projects there and they're near any of those roads, or those roads are incorporated in any of that, that's our first go-to. So if that's not the case, we will try to work with them, because generally, Jana showed you that little schedule, which is really nice. So
That's what
it's
I'm
a
thinking.
great partnership. That would be our second way to go, yeah, before we would do anything else.
I mean, that would be ideal, especially for the time frame. And then with everything that I know is going on in Port Salerno, they're talking about redoing the roads and the drainage anyway, so it'd be.
Yeah, so some of those are just really nicely coincidental, where we can supply funding and they can supply, doing the actual construction and the design. So, yeah, when it works, it really works. Yeah, when both have the opportunity.
Anybody else? All right, thanks, Jenna.
Thank you.
No new business, old business, CRA Golden Gate Neighborhood Improvement Project update.
So that's going to be our friend Wen Dang from DDEC.
Welcome,
Are you
Wen.
going to sit with me?
I could.
Oh, I can do your thing.
The presentation, yeah, the presentation is right here.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here. Just looking good.
Would you, do you want me to sit here?
No, you can do whatever you feel good.
I'm sorry for my reach height. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me back here. My name is Wen Dang. I am the project engineer, the transportation engineer that's working on this project. So I'd like to give us a little bit of an update. Maybe I'll sit next to you.
Should work. You want-
Did you turn it on? Is it on? This on the side?
It's not.
Try again.
There it is.
There you go.
So if you can remember, the last time I was here, I presented on a lot of existing conditions. We went out to do the data collection phase. We looked at crashes and traffic data. But here we have made further development in the plan. So I'd like to update you on what has our progress in the past like month and a half, and then ultimately show you some of these ideas that was originated from the CRA plan and being realized and within further details. So the first thing is traffic calming, and why is it so important in our community to have traffic calming? And so what is it, and how does that really affect us? And does it, so the question is like, does it belong on every single street? What are some traffic calming strategies that we could make it work within our community and in the neighborhood itself? And so if you recall the El Camino Trail design, right? Part of that design itself, there are raised crosswalk at every single intersection that the trail crosses one of our streets. And what that means is that it's a mid-block crosswalk. So we created what we called a arbitrary speed hump combined with crosswalk at that location. So on screen right here, you see that's the second image itself. It's a little bit different than your traditional speed humps, but you can, essentially it is the same. It's a vertical deflection in the roadway. And so for those of us that has lead feet, we tend to, slow down, but then we tend to speed up again after a traffic calming device. So the goal is to have these strategies in a series so that you have target speed in your neighborhood. Right. There's other part of the CRA plan. There's other concepts such as the mini roundabouts, and so what we've done as we're going further into our development is determine where they would fit and what type of mini roundabouts that will fit for the type of vehicles that we have here. So if we are designing for, and I'm giving an example, boat trailers and traffic, so we need to think about a different inscribed circle or maybe a mountable roundabout that if I drive a vehicle, I would slow down, but if I have a larger vehicle such as a school bus, which we have in this area, or a trailer, that they can go over these mountable curb and still access our streets. And of course, I'm introducing a couple more things that's a little bit different than what you are used to, which are more gateways design. And, gateway can be interpret so many different ways, right? You can have big grand arches, or you can have smaller neighborhood signs, or you could have bulb outs at the entrance of your intersections. And these are all different gateways. And they're gateways in a way that they force cars and vehicles to slow down when they make a left and a right-hand turn. So these are all the importance of traffic calming. Different things that combine in one system that helps us to reduce speed. A lot of these concepts, like there's a lot of pedestrian protections itself. So think about like a crosswalk. If someone were to cross the street and you have a bulb out, it's a shorter distance for that person or that child to cross the street. So that's what it does also. So there's a lot of safety benefits. As you can see, I've done some research in the end. We actually created 11 by 17 flyers, and we have given it out to the neighborhood. Just a little bit of background education on what is traffic calming and how it can be applied in here. So there's a lot of things that we have to understand about traffic calming and what is not traffic calming. And so a lot of times we think and that if I put in a stop sign, then it will calm traffic. So as a traffic engineer in our realm, a stop sign is not traffic calming. It's traffic control. Right? There's the different in traffic control, which is your speed limit, your signage, and then traffic calming is to encourage people to have a certain type of behavior. So an unwarranted, what we call like a stop sign that doesn't belong at an intersection, an unwarranted stop condition is actually shown in studies. It's more dangerous than applying traffic calming. So we want to take a look, and we're making recommendations that maybe there's a better strategy to apply than it is to force signage, right? Because if we force signage, that means our law enforcement officer has to be out there to enforce. So if we have a speed limit signs, we may influence them to have a different driving behavior, but it doesn't necessarily that someone will follow the rules. So we know there's a lot of, all of us are compliant as it is in our community, but there are those who also are not compliant. So, and this again, there's a lot of text on screen right here, but it essentially says, what is traffic calming, what is not, and when placing traffic calming, right? There's actually best practices, national best practices on how these can be applied. It has to be a series. Think of it like a long corridor. If you have 10 blocks, your goal is for someone to go not 35 one block and 20 the other block, but maybe your goal is someone to travel consistently at 25 miles per hour through that 10 blocks. So you have to space it, right? There has to be a strategy where you're spacing it so many periodically. And the best practice is between 300 to 500 feet from each other. So if you look at the entire neighborhood, our streets are very well gridded, so each block itself can receive one strategy that will work, that will function. And again, when we went to the neighborhood, we presented all this information, explained to the residents what's the difference between a yellow sign and a white sign. So in our world, a white sign, which we called a regulatory signs, right? That's your stop sign, your speed limit signs. Those are signs that can be enforceable. When we think about traffic calming, we post advisory signs, which are your yellow sign. Here's a bump that's coming ahead, so slow down. You're entering, and if you notice in different communities, you see signs that say traffic calmed area of 20 miles per hour. That's an advisory sign, advising people that when you're approaching this neighborhood, because of a series of traffic calming already, your advisory speed is 20 miles per hour. That's what that means. And so we spent a lot of time helping residents to understand these are the differences and how that can be applied. The other thing is, as we're looking at every single sections in the neighborhood, so the plan, like from the CRA plan, is let's take a look at our right-of-way width and where does that apply, right? And what typical sections, what can our future streets, not necessarily what it looks right now, but in the future, what can we apply to meet that intent? And so as you can see, the majority of our streets, you have a few scenarios. Most of the sections, the right-of-way width is 50 feet. There are some that is 75, 80, and 100. And I'm going to go through each one of these scenarios. If you want to pause and discuss, I'm happy to do that as well. So the first thing is we're going to focus on 50. This scenario happens everywhere. Some of the streets, actually, the typical section is already as it's existing. So as you can see, some of your street on Bonita or Clayton, at the entrance where the commercial district is, you already see that there are on-street parking on both sides because that supports your commercial use and your redevelopment of the future commercial spaces that's there. But what it could do, and that's part of your other studies with landscaping, your landscaping study, is that we can create these beautiful bulb outs that can receive trees and shade trees. And this is very consistent with the plan that's laid in. And as you can see, this particular section, there has to be some modification so that we can have curb and gutter that defines the space that you're in, that convey flow, that fix your drainage system in this particular blocks is a little bit different than what you see as its existing conditions. In other areas where you don't have commercial uses, where you have residential streets, where you don't have a need for on-street parking, the recommendation is to create this beautiful parkway, and in essence, that will give us more opportunity for plantings, right? Our sidewalk is actually, I'm very proud to say that the plan itself and the county code calls for 6 feet, which is wider than a lot of sidewalks that's in other communities itself. But what this section does is that it gives you a buffer, like a buffer space from the cars and a buffer space for pedestrians. In these scenarios, I think it's very encouraging that your front yard for a resident feels more like a front yard than it is a thoroughfare. And of course, you probably see that, streets that doesn't have the yellow striping in the middle, you're probably thinking, what does that 2 yellow stripe means? And actually, per the MUTCD, it recommends that if you have a traffic volume of under 4,000 trips a day, you don't have to have center line striping. So that's what it does. Okay. And so in certain scenario, and as you can see, some sections that are, we need on-street on some side and we don't. So there's a scenario where we do accommodate for maybe those properties that we need a certain on-street parking. And on-street parking, and as you can see, we laid this out in a plan view before we make these determinations to bring it on here, is that it's your spacing of your driveway requirements also. When you have two driveways that's too close together, you technically, one parking space is 8 by 20 for on-street parallel parking. So we have to determine which area we can and cannot have on-street parking. But this scenario could apply on streets such as Delmar, Clayton, Bonita, Amherst, certain section. The other section of what you see on screen here is 75-foot right-of-way, which is very unique in essence because it's only a few sections, but we do have to consider what that looks like. And as you can see, for 75 feet, right, each one of these sections, especially in areas that is, as you can see, the sidewalk path and the on-street parking, it's actually birch. It borders the commercial district on one side. So you want parking on one side to support those parking, those businesses. And on the other sides, which you have a very beautiful yard, this, the 10 feet multi-use path actually connects to the, and is consistent, staying consistent with El Camino Trail design itself. And as you can see here, there's a lot more space for greeneries. As you can see in this particular section, and this is, again, El Camino, right? This is a section of El Camino that has not been built out. It stays consistent with the El Camino design that you have set forth before you. And then one small section in between Indian and Norman itself, what we're looking for is parking, like 90-degree parking to support those adjacent properties itself. And then if you can bear with me, and for Jefferson, it's really interesting because this is Southern Limits. It connects, Dixie all the way to the east. It's a really, really important street for 80-foot right-of-way. We did look at it for 2 scenario. And again, when we looked at when we reviewed our existing plans that's on there. This particular section is we have to provide for a multi-use path because that is our Sun Trail bypass, right? That's part of our East Coast Greenway network itself. So as you can see, the multi-use trail is to be consistent with the plan that's already been approved and set in place. And so what can we do with the spaces in between? And so the thought is, and our team look at traffic calming because that is a very important street that maybe gets a little more cut through of our community than we like. But ultimately, we know that we can look at it for, stormwater retention for bioswale because we know that there's not enough in this community. And then, of course, if we don't do bioswale, the swale space in between the curb line itself, the edge of pavement, and the sidewalk or the pathway, it's still enough for us to have some kind of capacity. So it really, these are 2 options for us to determine what's best. And of course, we are in, I would say, the most generous right-of-way width that we have in the community itself, which is Indian Street. And I think Indian is, in my opinion, as an outsider looking into this community, this is a gateway of our neighborhood. Because we have so much right-of-way, it gives us so much flexibility as a transportation engineer to really dream big and think about what else can we do? What other multimodal element that's in the CRA plan that we can look at accommodating? Should we, and this is one concept where we have on-street parking, traditional on-street parking on the outside, right, to support some of the narrow lots that we have, and of course, on-street parking. Create a really beautiful median, as you can see here on screen, so that we can have shades in the center. And of course, on the outside, right? We have the option from our plan and even from our code. Do we want to think about a multi-use path, or do we have space right there to do what we call a one-way cycle track, and to connect that external multimodal? And as you can see, if you look on screen here, it's a very important gateway because it connects US 1. And again, to the east. And what this does is that it separates the biking from the on-street vehicle, right? The cars that's driving. That's always the ultimate goal. But if we don't go with that concept, what other concepts are there? What are some other innovation, right? This is where we've found that if we want to connect the El Camino Trail to another trail network, we can look at a trail that is, in the median itself, as it is present on screen. Of course, there's also pros and cons to every single one of this, but again, this is a concept that we like to, pique your interest and get your feedback to determine what would be a good gateway design for the neighborhood itself. And these are options. And then lastly, gateway features. In your plan, there's a few locations of what are the gateway features. We looked at different architectural elements, and we actually have a cross sections of what we think is consistent with the gateway in this area. And so, what are some inspiration that we have within the vicinity? And of course, being local, this is very iconic, right? It was built in the 20s, and we do think that the Moorish, that Mediterranean architecture is very interesting here. It's very large in comparison to what we have and where we can fit this. And so, of course, these have to be designed. But what's our inspiration? And then, of course, this is the other one that we found in Tallahassee. Very similar architecture itself, but it's there as an opportunity, as a gateway into the neighborhood. And so currently, our team is working with the CRA to combine these two architectural elements to come up with a different concept that's unique to Golden Gate itself. And so actually this concludes my update as a very detailed presentation to you and what we've done up to this point. So I'm here for questions.
Did you thought about the end of streets, because we have a lot of, about the cul-de-sac for the streets?
For the cul-de-sac itself?
yeah.
So that's interesting that you mentioned that because, yes, there are some cul-de-sacs. We just don't have the right-of-way to design for a cul-de-sac to, for example, on screen right here, Ellendale, right, all the way to the east. It's a dead end. You have to have a significant right-of-way for a vehicle to make a U-turn and for that. So typically, we look at turning radius of vehicle. For these particular sections, we don't recommend cul-de-sacs just because we can't, it's a geometry constraint that we're under.
Because the traffic is horrible, especially in the middle of the night, when you hear somebody stuck in the hole or something like that. I live at the end of the street, so
Is there like a T-turn around there or something, or is it just end in people's
no,
driveways?
they turn in our driveway.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was the neighborhood was not planned. The right of way was never planned, so you would have to the compliant person would have to make a 3-point turn for a turnaround. But there's not enough right-of-way for us to design for a T turnaround. Yeah.
When oh, go ahead.
Question. Over in Palm City, they just did a mini roundabout on High Meadows. And you need to go look at that because I'm no engineer, but it seems like, have you seen it, Jordan? What do you think? Is it too small? It works. Because it seems like it's a very small one, and the big tractor trailers that come through there have to go straight through everything and can't really make the roundabout. So all I was recommending is maybe go take a look at that.
Absolutely. One of our employee actually live in Palm City, your other CRA. But and of course, like every time that we make recommendations for roundabout, and like again, roundabout has best practices to them, right? There's always a large circle for vehicle to go into, but there's always an inscribed circle. This is what you see. Like typically, it's textured, and it's an inscribed circle so that if I'm driving a car, I don't technically drive over it because
Right.
it'll be a bump for me. But for a larger vehicle, they could take that inscribed circle and make that left turn. Because in a roundabout, it's the hardest thing is that left turn movement, right? Because it's that 270-degree turn. And so I'll take a look at it and we'll,
So I see the tire marks on the inner circle.
Yep.
Quite a bit.
yep.
So that's what I was just.
That's probably what it was designed to do, is that the inscribed circle is for the larger vehicle to be able to turn. Because the goal is not to restrain and not to, constrain that movement, but to slow down for them to make that.
Is that all paved? No planting?
There's no planting yet, but in the inside is dirt, like they're gonna plant.
They're gonna,
Like maybe
yeah.
it's a narrow 5-foot space or something? Maybe it's a mini.
It's the smallest thing I've ever seen.
Are you talking about the newer one that they just placed?
Yes.
And then that curb is a mountable curb. That's the whole point, that inside.
Well, no, what I'm saying though is the middle section, which is only maybe 5 or 6 foot wide. I see, tractor trailer tires going through the middle of that thing. That's the only reason I was just.
Yeah, I'll visit that. And
It's
then-
a smaller one for sure. I don't know if it would still fit at the end of these.
These are very small, and if you can imagine, our right-of-way width varies 50 feet, and then 80 feet, or 100 feet. Your circle, realistically, it has to be centered to both right-of-way. So we would have to look at it on a case-by-case scenario. We do know where the locations of where it would fit, where it would be. So maybe it's something that we can present next time when we come back, where those locations.
Thank you.
You're saying that we have a lake, or whatever you call it. There's a retro in front of us, and next to it is a big lot, land. County property also. You could do something in there so people don't come all the way to the end of the street. If you want to come by, and I'll show you. We have people used to cross from that, between, they go from Fairmont to Allendale, just cross. So until somebody decided to stop it.
I know I'm probably going to open up a can of worms here.
Yeah, please.
But just looking at this, and I know the neighborhood. Is that Hemlock Avenue?
Never heard of that.
On the right?
Yeah, the one furthest.
Hemlock,
Yeah, on the
where your
right.
black line is?
Oh, way in the corner, yeah.
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 Are you able to connect? You see how there's 2 ends?
Yeah.
Are you able to connect that road?
At Hemlock, from.
Take Hemlock all the way from Indian to Kensington and connect those roads to that.
Let me see, I believe it's a 50-foot right-of-way. And I don't think our right-of-way extends from there.
Right.
And
You're talking about parallel to Golden Gate Ave, connecting that end
Yeah, I think it's from
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
That's going to be,
it's not, we don't own that land.
You don't have a,
We don't own the property,
Yeah,
yeah.
we, and again, we were instructed to look at right-of-way.
Yeah, there's an
yeah,
STA,
we don't have it anyway, so.
yeah.
well, we have a ditch in there. You can do nothing about it.
That would have been a good solution.
It would.
Do you guys have any other questions?
I do. So, is emphasis placed on underground utilities when you're doing these, as far as keeping them out of the planting spaces, out of the medians where there's vegetation?
Are you referring to overhead
Underground utilities, so when they go to plant a tree, there's no pipe, or people have actually been
That would-
thinking, let's not put the pipes here?
Yeah, yes,
It's a
absolutely.
common problem, I'm telling you.
common
I run
problem.
into it all the time.
And I think it's you're absolutely right, because it's all dependent on where we are able to plant trees is where the existing utilities are that's underground.
Or proposed.
Or proposed, that's correct. And so for the most part, when we go into final design, those are the areas that is being determined. In other projects that I've worked on that, there are conflict, I would not, the community have opted to do an adopt the tree program, and it's the resident that's adopting a tree on their own property so that you can have shades from their property over the proposed sidewalk. And so that is a program that I've seen other communities have.
Yeah, with the residents stressing shade, it's important to make sure they can actually plant the tree.
Absolutely, yeah. Shade trees, you have overhead constraints, underground constraints, but that is a solution that different communities have proposed to combat the limited right-of-way that you have.
Right, and then if you have the ability to put pipes in the roadway, put them in the roadway, not in the planting space.
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
Another question, the lane width on the 50-foot section, you had 2 feet and a 10 feet and 2-foot curb and gutter. Is that a typical roadway width, 10?
So in the, if you refer back to the code itself, for the CRA, it's actually is encouraged for narrow lanes within the CRA limits. But as far as other county roads that's not within the CRA limits, no.
Okay.
It's a wider right-of-way, 11.
11's the typical?
Yeah.
And so that's why on the 80-foot and the 100, you use the 11?
Yes, so as you can see that depend on our what our constraints are, right? So a lot of these, for example, this is Jefferson's right here. The 11-foot, that makes a lot of sense because you only have 2 roads in the entire neighborhood that connect east to west and connect to US 1. So these are, these streets itself, like, they just carry more traffic, and so you have to create a design space that's accommodating for a larger vehicle. For other neighborhood streets, especially a cul-de-sac, I believe that a 10-foot is very adequate and it fits the need of the residents.
Oh, we need solution in there because too many traffics. And even though with the sign dead end, they don't
Yeah.
bother to look at it.
One other quick comment, and is the design where you had the Sun Trail, I think it is, or the multi-use plan pavement in the middle of the right-of-way.
Look at that.
I thought that was interesting, and my reasoning is that we had in Hope Sound some comments about a multi-use trail, and people were concerned about having that multi-use trail adjacent to their home because they felt like, well, in this situation, they felt like transient people were going to be using this trail. That's not where I'm going. I'm going more in that it puts people in the middle that perhaps are not adjacent to houses and maybe makes those homeowners feel a little safer because they're not adjacent to their home.
So absolutely, there's pros and cons to everything, right? There's no one perfect solution that meets everybody's intent. For this particular concept that you see here, the pros are the trail itself, because the trail is in the middle. What you have is what we're proposing is middle parking. So there's no driveway to cut you off. You can actually have more parking to accommodate more of whatever you need. And in areas that maybe you make that bulb out for the parking to have even more shade trees or turn those into bioswales. So there's a lot of options that you can do here. The cons are, and this is like the debate date that we have received feedback from different engineers and staff members is that when you have a trail in the middle, the concern is like a safety concern. Somebody might just cross the street itself and not cross at a designated crosswalk. Whether if we intend to design it one way or another, people will always use it for what they want. And so for this particular design, we would design for, maybe more crosswalks, maybe mid-block crosswalks, and that impacts like travel pattern or whatever that may be. But, this trail itself being in the middle, you still have sidewalks on the outside. You still have multimodal on the outsides. I think that if the community decide to go with this concept, it'll tie into the El Camino Trail very, very nicely, because you have your north-south trail, right? And then you have your east-west trail in the neighborhood. So again, these are options that could fit. And because we have 100 feet right away, there's a lot of options for us.
I like too that someone traveling through will not have to stop for someone in a car or a driveway. They can just continue, if they're on a bike, they can just ride right through without having to be concerned about people backing in or somebody walking or running or whatever the use is.
There's, yes, absolutely. And there's also, the rise of e-bikes and the popularity of e-bikes. And I'm sure you probably heard that
I was thinking about it.
the speed, because e-bikes gives, us with low mobility more options to go further distance. It'll be a nice space for that as well, without conflict.
I did have one more comment.
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
The gateways, I thought I think that's a great idea to pursue, and they're unique. People anybody who's grown up around here knows this gateway, and to create that kind of feeling in other neighborhoods, I think it's a benefit and a positive.
I think we're just going to go with golden arches.
Golden, no, it's not. You can do better than that. You can do better than
What's
that.
that guy's name? Roy something? We'll thank him. We'll do that.
I was doing, maybe I got a little too deep with Joy looking at all the arches, because we picked close to 8, and we had to narrow it down. But what was really interesting about like the 20s is like the boom of real estate in South Florida, and you see a lot of historic like neighborhoods in the 1920s. It's so iconic to this area as far as like the architecture. So I do think that gateways are unique. It's we want them everywhere. It might not happen just because of there's a lot of constraint. There's sight distance, turning movements. If you're close to an intersection, you're always at risk. But of course, these are just so iconic that you can't. You know exactly where you're at. It's a destination. It's identity.
Yeah. Can you go back to the median one again?
I'm sorry. Yep.
So my question is really more for the members. What do you guys think of this? I mean, I think this is an amazing design, but the parking is right. You do see that the parking is right next to the pathway in the middle, right? So the cars that are driving would have to be really going fairly slow because people are going to be parking or, getting in and out of their car and that kind of thing. And I know that we've had some discussion about Dixie Highway and how that's working. I think in this case, you don't have that back and forth like, that was mentioned of people and bikes, going across the street all the time. But I just would love to get some feedback on what do you guys think of that? Do you think that's something that's doable?
Not really for Dixie Highway.
No, not for Dixie. No, I'm saying,
Indian Street?
yeah. Or any other streets in CRAs, just in general.
Let's talk about Indian Street for a minute. My concern with that design is that it's a well-traveled street.
Yes.
It's very heavy traffic. And I've always been concerned that through the most congested neighborhood, Golden Gate, you have 35 miles an hour, and then you get across a bridge where people have more money and it's 25 miles an hour. What's the reason for that? there's less congestion where it's 25, it should be less speed where there's more congestion in Golden Gate. This concept on Indian Street, I'd be a little concerned about because it is well-traveled. And because of that, I'd be worried about people going in between the cars and traffic not seeing them and having problems with that.
So would you say, Rex, that you would prefer not to have the parking, maybe?
Well, the other concern with Indian Street,
and then
there's
it's
a lot
two
of
lanes each way?
multifamily areas there where there's a lot of cars in one area. And how's this width of 100 feet going to affect those families that park a lot of cars at one house? And if they needed the parking space, it would be better to have it on the neighborhood, the house side, I feel, so they would have the extra
Yeah.
spaces. Now, I'm talking about just Indian Street.
Yeah.
I like the concept in other areas that maybe aren't quite so congested, though.
Can I, point of clarification, so the drive lane and the parking that you see on screen, it can be flipped, right? It's not right or wrong. It can be on the outside. Especially in neighborhoods where you see a lot of driveway that you can't have like a marked downtown style of on-street parking, parallel parking. What we typically do is we stripe an edge lane on the outside, and that becomes a space that, neighbors can park. And so you're not constrained and confined to, these,
So you don't have the lines?
yeah, you don't have the line.
Just one long, and you just pull in?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
what we
Seems
treat.
more typical of the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
than,
on the
you know,
outside.
It might be confusing for people
Yeah.
with this, and they may end up driving in the parking spaces if
Oh, yeah.
no one's parked. You know how people are. They drive down the multi-use lane
Hey,
on,
on Bridge Road, they were driving over the sidewalk just to get in,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Find
and
a parking
how you
space.
treat that is you put bollards in the
Crazy.
middle of the entrance of the multi-use way.
That'll stop 'em.
Yeah. Well, we hope, but,
So I just had two things. I think it's great when you go back to the community because they live there, so they'll have really good insight for you. I agree with Rex. I do feel like the parking there would be an issue. My other concern with all of the e-bikes and everything, in the multi-use trail, is there a designated lane for bikes and a designated walking lane? Or is it just?
in this particular design, no, it's mixed use, it's for interpretation. In this particular design here.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah, there are, so instead of what you think of a traditional multi-use trail on the outside, what we do is we will stripe it for bike only and ped only. And we've done this all over another part of, Palm Beach County, very consistent. DOT has adopted this concept in a lot of their, road reconstruction projects that they have upcoming. They've done this down in Lake Worth, West Palm Beach. They've done this concept where you stripe it, so you're biking, you're in one area, so it's designated.
So maybe it could be a combination of those two
Yeah.
plans, so to speak. Okay, yeah, I think it's great when you go back to the community, because they'll have the best insight for you.
Absolutely. There's no right or wrong. Like, these are concepts. We will estimate the cost of construction and, the higher cost of the two concepts. Because it's, we have to plan for the future. But these are details. But ultimately, the goal is multimodal, complete streets, making sure that we stay consistent with the CRA plan and the code.
Anybody else? Thanks so much. That was a great presentation. We appreciated it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bud.
Our next item is departmental, and there's nothing written there, so we go into the comments section. Any members of the public wish to speak? I don't see anybody. Any members of the board? Any comments? Yes.
I keep forgetting about this. I just wanted to remind everyone about the Bahamian Festival, which will be coming up pretty soon at New Monrovia in Port Salerno. It's the annual party where they have a Junkanoo band that comes out, and there's a beautiful parade. There's all kind of food trucks, and it's good entertainment that comes out, dancers and musicians, and it's a good time all day long. And I believe that is October 4th. Let me double check before I lie to you. Yes, October 4th,
And where?
New Monrovia Park. And they usually have the parade and the band in the morning, around about 10 or 11 o'clock.
Great. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am?
I don't know if they, what I'm going to ask, we having a problem with the trash pickup in Golden Gate. Especially the, people cutting their trees. And I've seen this pile in the middle of, Fairmont before I left for Morocco. And I came back and it's still there. The reason I know it is because it scratched my car because I come close to it. And it's still there. They never come back and pick up, like they used to. They pick
Is it
up
mostly yard waste or is it furniture?
both furniture and yard waste.
Usually Waste Management's really good about that.
I know. And it just seemed like they're not really, you can come and look around.
Sometimes you gotta call them though, too.
Well,
Yeah, we can give them a call, Sadia, and see if, for whatever reason, if there's something going on.
And I've even submitted the request for services. At times, if I see them out there a little too long, and they usually respond pretty
I know,
quickly.
I normally kind of send, like an email to, Jeff Saban. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to bother him this time, be honest with you. And just
Yeah, I can give him a call and see what's going on.
because
not a
they are
problem.
not really doing what they mostly do.
Well, I'll just let him know that you said so in public at a meeting where, it's televised. And I bet you they'll be out there the next day.
Told their trucks not to hit my car. Because that's
I'll let him know that too. Any other demands? No, I'm teasing.
Any other comments from the board?
This is not a good demand. What else you want?
I'm good. I'm okay.
Anybody else? Staff comments?
Nothing for
Staff
me.
comments. All right, we'll adjourn.